Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 7, Episode 3, A Town Called Mercy. So, this episode is a Western-style Doctor Who episode, similar to 1966's The Gunfighters in Season 3. This time with a sci-fi twist. So the plot of this episode is the Doctor, Amy and Rory arrive in a town called Mercy in the late 1800s in the United States, probably the Western states, um, where the town is under siege from a alien cyborg known as the Gunslinger, which is part of the Kala race, and he demands the people to Mercy to hand over the Kala doctor, the Kalfa doctor, Kalfa Jack, to hand him over to him. And it turns out that Jack and his team of people took volunteers to turn into cyborg killing machines in a war against an unnamed race. And then once the war was over, the machines were decommissioned, except Kalfa Tech, as it's revealed is the name of the gunslinger, who malfunctioned and started to hunt down the team that created him and is now after Jack. So the Doctor and company have to see if they can protect Jack, not because they side with him, but because they feel like the gunslinger is not doing the right thing. He's going for revenge rather than justice. They do feel, however, that Jack should face justice, but not this type of justice. What's even more so is that the people of Mercy aren't so willing to give up Jack because he's been doing some nice things to the town. He's been helping them as a doctor, giving them electronics, clean water, etc. Was it clean water? They might say clean water. If not, then not clean water. But he's basically been helping them out and being a nice guy and being friendly with them, including Marshall Isaac. So the people of Mercy initially aren't too keen to give up Jack. So the Doctor has to find some sort of peaceful way to come to terms with both parties. So that's a town called Mercy. Now, like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, I don't think this one is a perfect story, but I think it's a very good and enjoyable story. I'm not really a Western person. I'm not really a fan of the Western stories, but this one is a fun, enjoyable, entertaining romp. I think the best stuff of the story is actually the drama side, because there is quite a bit of drama between the Doctor, Jack, and the Gunslinger, as well as also Isaac, Amy, Rory, and some of the other townsfolk in the story. As it when the Doctor finds out, Doctor initially he's a fan of the Carver people, but when he finds out what Jack has done, you can tell you can see the hatred on his face more or less. Not so much for the person, but more for what he's done. And I think Matt Smith once again continues to be outstanding, especially with the emotions on the face and especially with the emotional side of this in the story when he gets more angrier with Jack, and also when he's warning off the townspeople later on in the story when they want to want Jack out kicked out of town because now the gunslinger is going to come for him, and he's prepared to kill anybody who stands in his way now. From about halfway through the story, because initially he's waiting for them to give up Jack, but now and he'll shoot at anyone who tries to leave. But after the accidental death of Isaac at the hands of the gunslinger, he decides he's just going to come for Jack now. And the townspeople have got one day. So the townspeople initially don't want to give up Jack, but now they're prepared to, or they are prepared to kill him. And there's a great bit where the Doctor has to warn them off. Now, the Doctor, Nash, as I've mentioned, he hates what Jack has done, and he even was prepared to throw Jack out until Amy reasoned with him. And now there's a great bit around end of Act 1, start of Act 2, where the 11th Doctor talks down the villagers. It's a bit like the scene in the Happiness Patrol in season 25, where the 7th Doctor goes up to talks to some snipers, and he's more or less trying to. One of them is threatening to shoot him with a sniper gun at close range, and the 7th Doctor's more or less taunting him to do it, and ultimately the sniper guy can't do it. It's a bit like that. The Doctor's manipulating the people not to use their weapons, or at least he did. And this time around, the Doctor tries to reason with them, but the manipulative side of the Doctor still comes through. But yeah, I think Matt Smith does a outstanding job. Whether it's his happy, enjoyable moments, or whether he's angry with Jack, or whether he's trying to calm down the townsfolk or the gunslinger. Gunslinger. I find Jack to be a great character. I think Adrian Scarborough is great in the role. He's the guy you initially like to start with, and then you pretty much hate him for when we find out what he's done. But we still feel some sympathy because he helps out. That he still helps the town, and he's not a villainous person. He's not a villainous person. I mean, you could argue he's either he or the Gunslinger are the villain of the story, but he's not a bad person. Not really. He's just done some bad things, and there is the fact that his people believe in carrying the weight of their souls, with them in their when they die. That's a nice little addition to the lore of their characters, and I think that is a nice addition to the character. Similarly, Carl Fatek, aka the Gunslinger, is a pretty interesting character. And fun fact, that's Karen Gillan's boyfriend who plays him. His name escapes me. I think it's Adrian something, but that's Karen Gillan's boyfriend playing the Gunslinger, and he does a great job in the role, especially towards the end when we see a bit more emotion on the face when we realize when, spoiler alert, Jack commits suicide, and so ends the feud between them. But I think there's some great moments from the Gunslinger, and he is a sympathetic villain as well. I think both villains are sympathetic. They're not really bad. They just done bad. Well, Jack's done bad things, and the Gunslinger is kind of going around justice the wrong way. He's going on a sort of revenge mission and not really thinking straight. Maybe that's because he's a machine, not a robot, a cyborg. But nevertheless, they're still sympathetic characters. The supporting characters, I'll get back to Amy and Rory, but supporting characters, Isaac's a fun and is a nice supporting character in the first half of the story before his tragic death, but I think he's a good marshal. And whilst the rest of the townsfolk aren't awfully memorable, there's a few notable characters, but I don't think there's many with names, and there's not many we spend a lot of time with besides Isaac and Jack. But they're still nice to have on screen from time to time. I will say this: the story is being told by the perspective. We got a narration at the start and the end by by the sounds of it, an elderly lady, and it turns out to be the great granddaughter of this little girl who's just in the last third of the episode, and she knocks some books over in the church, which causes the Gunslinger to break into the church at that point in the last third, and then at the end, we have a few shots of her, and it turns out the narrator at the start and end is her great-granddaughter. So are we saying that this story is being told to a present-day audience about what happened a century and a few decades earlier? But, yeah, that doesn't make much sense. It would make more sense if it was the little girl herself. That would have made some sort of sense if it was the tavern lady. Not the tavern, that's a British one. The saloon lady, the woman who runs the saloon, that would have made a lot of sense. But yeah, not quite sure what the decision was, unless they wanted to have it to be an urban legend that's passed down to throughout the generations, and we've reached the current generation, or the current generation is being told this story by a descendant of this little girl. Yeah, that doesn't make an awful lot of sense. As for Amy and Rory, they didn't do an awful lot in this story, but they're still good. I think after Asylum of the Daleks, this could be the weakest one of the pair of them, but that's not because the characters are badly written. They're done well, they're done fine, but it feels like an average episode for them as per usual. In fact, you could swap them out with any companion, and or any supporting character, and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. That being said, they are done way better than Asylum of the Daleks, but it does feel more like this is a more Series 6 style episode, or Series 5 style episode, as opposed to a Series 7 one, where Amy and Rory had quite a bit of a presence in the Series 7 Part 1 episodes, because it was leading up to their departure, except here, which is a shame. They just, well, apart from when Amy talks down the Doctor, reasons with him when he's about to throw out Jack midway through the story. Apart from that bit, which again could have been swapped out with Isaac or anybody, but anybody who else who was travelling with the Doctor, but besides that, there isn't really much of Amy and Rory's to do in this episode that is beyond business as usual. The thing is, it just feels like business as usual, while the other episodes of Series 7 Part 1, even Asylum of the Daleks, added something, and some sort of conflict or addition to or look into their lives or just something. Asylum of the Daleks had the shit divorce plot. Dinosaurs on the Spaceship had the inclusion of Brian and Rory being with him throughout most of the episode. In fact, he got to spend more time with the Doctor in that story than Amy did. Um, then in the Power 3, basically it's Pond Life, but 9 times as long in length, 8 to 9 times long. And it looks at the Pond's relationship with the Doctor as well with in their real life. And then Angels Take Manhattan is all about their exit. But A Town Called Mercy just feels like another adventure for them, like in Series 5 and Series 6. Whilst the other stories had something extra going for them. Once again, the execution is done really well. Some great cinematography and editing. Maybe there's a few quick edits now and again that's not too great, but it's not really something that poorly affects the story. In fact, this one's got a really great, more cinematic feel. I think out of all the stories, because Series 7 was supposed to be, it was conceived as the blockbuster series, especially these first 5 episodes. Out of the first 5, I think this one might be the most visually stunning episode. But the Asylum of the Daleks has some great direction. But I think visually stunning this one might be. It's in terms of a location. It's probably the one that uses its location to the biggest advantage of the story, and the visuals also capture that really well. I don't think this story needed an awful lot of CG. I think this one, besides a few visual effects here and there, it's mostly practical, which is admirable, and it works off really well and pays off really great. And a great score by Marigold. We've got some great Western style music here that works really good with the story. And acting from our supporting cast is great, and our main leads continue to be outstanding. It's just a shame this for Amy and Rory. It feels more like a Series 5 or 6 average adventure as opposed to an adventure with a little bit more sprinkled in, like the other stories in this half of the series. Yes, even Asylum of the Daleks, but it's still a good and entertaining story, and still really enjoyable and really fun. Overall, I will be giving A Town Called Mercy an 8 out of 10. It was good, it was fun, it was enjoyable. There's some good bits. It's not perfect, but it's fun, it's enjoyable. It has its moments. Could have improved in some places, maybe. Well, maybe having the Ponds to do a little bit more than running around and just helping the Doctor. Or at least maybe even if we just had a scene where they're talking to each other. Although I did like the bit where Day and Isaac are discussing amongst themselves when the Doctor's in a corner and Jack is in another corner, and they're just discussing what to do with him. That's a good bit where Amy and Rory try to make the decision themselves with Isaac, as the Doctor's not really putting any input in to begin with. So that was a good bit, but there isn't really a huge amount of scenes, character scenes like we get in the other stories in this half of the series. Then again, the next story is going to be very character driven, so maybe that explains it. But still, as for everybody else, the supporting characters are okay, but I don't think, besides Isaac, there's not many who will stand out or be memorable. I don't even think there's any notable names besides Isaac. But the villains are good for who they are. Jack and the Gunslinger, and the Doctor is brilliant as well. It may seem out of character for him to when he kicks Jack out. It might seem out of place for him to do that to begin with, but I think that Jack struck a chord with him at that point when he started taunting him about the Doctor not having the guts to do what's right, and basically that. I think that he struck a chord there because of the Time War stuff, but I don't mind that bit. I think that's a pretty good bit, especially because of Matt Smith's performance, and also Adrian Scarborough's as well. He was really great there. So that's it from me. Thank you for watching this review. It's a little bit shorter, but I didn't as much to say on this story as some of the other stories. Um, and yeah, and also I want to make some of these a bit quick, especially after the longer ones recently, especially Asylum of the Daleks. Though I had a lot to vent there. So to wrap up, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for The Power of Three. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Similar to the gunfighters from season 3 in 1965, no, 66. Similar to the gunfight. So, the doctor and as it turns out, Jack was. So, yeah, the people at Mercy aren't so keen to give up Jack until a ultimatum is reached. So, but now until Amy more or less told him made him reason. It's like in the Happiness Patrol in season 25, where when the Seventh Doctor tells more or less actually tries to a couple of decades earlier, a century and a decade earlier. We don't get more of the character. To be honest, Asylum of the Daleks had that shit divorce plot, but it was something. It's basically Pond Life times, and then but Asylum of the Daleks feels not as, but A Town Called Mercy. It just feels like it's a usual adventure for them, like in Series 6 Part 2 or Series 6 Part 1 or Series 5. But for even the divorce subplot was something. It was shit, but it was something added to the story for the characters. Although unlike that, however, thankfully the other stories managed to do the good stuff with the addition, a good addition of additional stuff with these characters in. Though that being said, it was still a terrible. Naturally, scratch that. Once again, the